We are in Virginia wine country. Virginia is one of the more famous and historical, at least as far as the United States go, wine producing states. And so we are here to check out Virginia wines and learn a little bit more about what's going on. So our first stop is here at Trump Winery. This is a gorgeous estate with rolling hills here. They have over 220 acres planted. Really beautiful views are right here behind the tasting room, and you kind of sit on Adirondack chairs, or they have kind of a large covered patio area where you can grab a tasting flight or a bottle or a glass and enjoy these rolling hill vineyards behind us. So a really scenic spot to start off our day. They focus a lot on French varietals, and so we saw Chardonnay, and then they did a couple different bubbles. One included Chardonnay and a little bit of Pinot Noir. They also had another Cabernet, which is their top seller. They also had a Meritage blend that included Cab Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. If you're targeting this area, this would be a great spot if you're looking for somewhere to kind of chill, unwind, really look out at these expansive views. This would be a good spot in the Charlottesville area to either get your day started, or depending on which direction you're going. We're in the south portion of Charlottesville, just in the hills underneath downtown Charlottesville, a few miles out from the city. And so you can choose which way you want to go based on a couple different spots. There's a lot of wineries that are just west of town, some that are north, few that are east, and several that are south, and that's the region that we're exploring today. We are going to go try a couple different vineyards. Second stop in the Charlottesville area was at Gabriel Rossi Winery. They have a bunch of acreage planted as well. They have small plots of vineyards in a few different spots, and also source some other Virginia grapes in the area. They have a total of over 200 acres that they have access to as far as what their production is. We decided to try a white flight and a red flight, so we get a whole spectrum of their wines. All their wines are made on site. Unlike Trump, they didn't have any sparkling wines, so that was a big difference between the two of those. And it was just a more intimate setting. They had a really nice tasting room that had big windows that really looked on a wooded area, and then you were able to sit outside in a few different areas that were more in the shade underneath some umbrellas. And your whole backdrop, as opposed to big roaming vineyards, was big tall trees, and so you kind of had some cool shady trees where you were able to sit. Couple standouts for us on the menu that we tried between the red and whites were Gruner Veltliner. We got a bottle of that. We also liked their Malbec as well. And so those are a couple of standout wines for us, both a white and a red, that we personally enjoyed on the tasting menu today. So we're gonna go to our next stop, which is Jefferson Vineyards, obviously related to Thomas Jefferson and that kind of history. So we're gonna get going down the road and hit up our last spot for the day before we go to Monticello. So our third and final winery stop for the day in Charlottesville area within the Monticello AVA was here at Jefferson Vineyards. this actual estate right here, Thomas Jefferson did plant vineyards in 1774 with Philip Mazzei, and so it was Virginia's first commercial vineyard ever. However, they planted it, and 2 years later the Revolutionary War broke out. His focus was elsewhere. It was originally a retirement spot that he had planned, and that was kind of, the vineyard was kind of the beginning of the retirement phase of things. But when the war broke out, obviously all hell broke loose. Some battlegrounds in nearby areas. There's a lot of rumors and things circling around, but essentially things got neglected and destroyed on the property. What's ironic that we learned here visiting this area is that he had this amongst his assets, and he ended up having a lot of debt later in life, and so he actually sold this property in order to pay off some of his debt. So there's your Jefferson fun fact. It wasn't really an area where he spent a ton of time, and even though it's named that and we're close by Monticello, this is the closest winery to the Monticello attraction in the area. Cheers! That was kind of the history, the beginning and the end of this estate. And so the current family that's owned it since 1939 brought back kind of that history and planted some of the same French varietals, albeit with a little bit of American hybrid and newer knowledge that was available at the time that wasn't available in the late 1700s, and kind of brought the original vision that Thomas Jefferson had back to life. There wasn't any sparkling wines or anything like that like we saw at Trump Winery, our first spot. There were still wines. They have reds and whites, or you can do a mixed flight as well. And so we tried it once again, just like the second stop at Gabriel Rossi. We tried a red flight and a white flight. So we got a whole kind of spectrum of what they have to offer here. Amongst the three places we went, the bottle prices were actually the most expensive here, but it was a little bit higher, a couple more dollars per bottle on average at this place. They have 23 acres planted in a couple different pockets nearby this actual estate here, and so they are about 1/10 the size of like Trump Winery as far as amount of vines and acres, and probably that associates a little bit with the bottle price and also the history of the actual estate. One standout for us was that they had a single varietal Petit Verdot, which we're actually seeing a lot more on tasting menus as we travel along. Typically a blending grape that you see in like Bordeaux blends, commonly blended with things like Cabernet Sauvignon or Cabernet Franc or Merlot. You'll see it often as a small percentage of that, but we're seeing more and more that winemakers really want to use Petit Verdot as its own varietal and really showcase what it can do. And for us, that actually was the standout wine here at Jefferson Vineyards for the tasting that we did here today. We got a really good example of Charlottesville wines. Really got to understand what this AVA is known for. We heard before we came here that it was mainly a white wine region, and so we expected that, but we discovered some wonderful red wines during our 3 stops today. Definitely diverse as far as the varietals that are grown here. Definitely exceeded our expectations as far as overall caliber and quality of the wines. We had heard good things about Virginia wines, thought that they might be a little bit limited, but definitely exceeded our expectations. So Virginia, good job, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see you on the next one.